Good morning, everyone, and welcome to NYSE Live. I'm Kristen Scholler here in the studio at the Stock Exchange. Equities are a little changed this morning. The S&P 500 fractionally lower after the major indices rallied into yesterday's close, following a 1/4 percentage point rate cut from the Federal Reserve. In its final meeting of the year, the central bank for 2026 boosted its growth forecast and lowered its inflation outlook. Officials now see the U.S. economy next year expanding at a rate of 2.3% from its prior view of 1.8%. Inflation, meanwhile, is expected in 2026 to drop to 2.4% from 2.6% previously anticipated. Artificial intelligence remains in the spotlight, with movement in Oracle shares pre-market impacting the large-cap S&P 500 index. AI has been a popular trade this year. You know, if you've been watching our show, especially in the stock market's recovery since it briefly dipped into correction territory on the back of tariffs in April. Well, now, after its momentum, traders are taking a look at valuations in the space, and we're seeing the trade evolve. We'll have more on that in a moment. But speaking of AI, earlier this morning, Time announced its 2025 Person of the Year, and the winner is the architects of AI. In its cover story on the decision, Time said that the architects, which include the biggest CEOs in technology, quote, grab the wheel of history, developing technology, and making decisions that are reshaping the information landscape, the climate, and our livelihoods, end quote. We'll have more on that throughout the show. Let's take a look at what's on tap this hour. NYSE senior market strategist Michael Ranking is joining me in studio to reveal what investors are taking away from the Fed's decision to cut rates and, of course, how this AI trade is evolving now that we're a few years in. We'll have a lot more, of course, on Powell's message. And let's take a look at what else is on tap. Industry giants trading on the exchange and smaller startups are using AI to bolster their next stages of growth. We'll hear from both on how they're implementing AI into their game plans. And we'll have extensive coverage of Time's Person of the Year celebration, from exclusive access to CEO Jessica Sibley's executive remarks in the boardroom to a one-on-one interview in the show later today. Of course, Sibley will be joining me from the trading floor after ringing the opening bell at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Well, let's begin with the markets. As we always do, investors digesting the Fed's decision yesterday on rates, its path forward and outlook, as well as the AI trade. Joining me now with more is NYSE senior market strategist Michael Ranking. Michael, great to have you.
Great to be back.
So much to talk about, especially this morning. As always, let's start with the Fed. What were your takeaways from yesterday?
Yeah, so I think, a lot of the what you have to think about in terms of what we saw yesterday is the expectations that markets had coming in. There was, since November 21st, when New York Fed President Williams really suggested there was further room to ease policy, markets had readjusted expectations that we were going to see a cut, but that was deemed to be a hawkish cut, where you were going to see the Federal Reserve really kind of raise the bar for further rate cuts going forward. Now, we've heard from all of the Fed officials, and there were kind of disparate views kind of across the federal, kind of across the committee, right? And we saw that was largely delivered yesterday, right? We saw there were 3 dissents, 2 preferring no cut, and 1, Stephen Moran, continuing to push for a 50 basis point cut. But the language, kind of that Chair Powell used, kind of throughout the press conference, and the fact that we got a balance sheet management adjustment by the Federal Reserve that was bigger and earlier than most people had expected. Kind of the markets had a dovish takeaway coming out of that, and we really saw kind of a risk-on environment, kind of throughout the day. In equity markets, you really saw that in the equal weight version of the S&P 500, which pushed to fresh highs, and then small and mid-cap indices. You had the Russell 2000 push to a new all-time high.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell's term comes to an end in May of next year. Has that started to factor into the markets at all? Yeah,
so I think if you look at where kind of probabilities are for the next 3 meetings that Chair Powell will be leading, right, markets are looking for about a 50-50 chance of an additional cut, right? We have heard the president, narrow the field down, right? And the odds-on favorite is Kevin Hassett to be the next Fed chair, right? And so, markets are starting to wonder, do we begin to lose some of that Fed independence as we move into next year? Now, if you look at the disparate views on the committee yesterday, right, there were 6 officials that preferred no cut, right? And so we only had 2 official dissents on that side of things. That's largely happening at the Fed president level. That is where we may see some of the politicization of this process, as those presidents are up for renomination in February, right? And so that's something that we'll have to kind of pay attention to.
I want to talk about AI. Time today naming the architects of AI as its person of the year, and we'll be seeing more coverage of that with Time, of course, on site, including its CEO Jessica Sibley throughout this hour. Michael, where do we stand in the AI trade?
Yeah, from a market perspective, AI has been the trade of the year for probably the last 2 or 3, right? You could very much make that case. But that trade is starting to evolve, right? And it very much kind of started out in the picks and shovels of that. Kind of in terms of servers and chips, right? Now those stocks have continued to perform really well, right? But now we're seeing it kind of broaden out, not only to kind of the energy infrastructure and the data center build out, right? So you're now starting to see it, move into more of the networking stocks, utilities, right? And then I think the next evolution of that trade, as we kind of move through that process, is going to be kind of the adoption and as you see companies begin to use, kind of AI in kind of the day-to-day workflow, and and as that starts to help productivity and then drive, kind of gains on the bottom line.
And let's talk about what we see in the price action, because we know since a few years ago, these AI stocks have been hot. They've been very risk-on sectors, if you will, I think, as you referenced earlier there, Michael. But more recently, we have seen questions about valuations come to the forefront. What does that signify?
Yeah, so I mean, there's been a lot of parallels driven to kind of the late 1990s in terms of kind of the technological revolution and then kind of the performance in those stocks. Now, the difference is this time around, all of the spending that's happening for a lot of this infrastructure, or most of it up until very recently, had been driven by cash flow from a lot of these larger companies. We're now starting to see that shift a little bit more to kind of debt markets, right? And that's kind of where some of the concerns are starting to kind of bubble up. You have the valuation concerns, but you're now also kind of starting to wonder about kind of some of the funding concerns, right? And you're seeing companies increase their CapEx, right? But that's not flowing into kind of revenues yet, and it's not flowing to the bottom line, right? And that's where markets are starting to have a little bit more of a concern.
Let's talk about the CEOs that stand out in the AI space as we await those boardroom remarks from Time CEO Jessica Sibley.
Yeah, so I mean, look, Jensen Huang, is kind of the first name that sort of comes to mind, right? Is NVIDIA has been kind of the backbone across all of these kind of large language models, kind of up until this point. Their dominance on that front is starting to be drawn into question, and that's kind of also the dispersion you're starting to see within the marketplace, right? As kind of Alphabet's TPUs are now kind of starting to also be kind of brought into the infrastructure side of things here, and you're starting to see kind of other competitors to NVIDIA, right? But we continue to see just this massive investment, right? And kind of we're going to see this evolution, kind of start to kind of make its way through kind of the economy to companies. I'm sure you use it in your day-to-day life. I know I do as well.
What are the biggest questions when it comes to AI in 2026?
So I think, look, the biggest question is from a market perspective is going to continue to be kind of on this spending, right? Is there a kind of a misallocation of capital? I think it's a little too early to kind of draw those conclusions, right? It's sort of hard to separate from that AI factor, right? Because as we talked about, it started to broaden out within the marketplace, right? And so escaping that is going to be sort of difficult. The markets tend to focus on kind of the rate of change, right? And if we start to see that spending rate of change slow down, that's where markets can get a little bit concerned from that factor. But there are some really other kind of positive fundamental things that are happening kind of more broadly within the market going into next year. If you look at kind of the potential kind of potential tax refunds, right, and kind of the capital spending that's going to also come back into the reshoring of kind of in the industrial sector, kind of more broadly across the marketplace.
I'm Michael Renking with me here in studio, the NYSE Senior Market Strategist. Michael, we'll see you down there on the floor to celebrate the architects of AI a little bit later.
Absolutely. Thanks
I am curious, before we let you go, though, as we await these remarks, we are toward the end of the year. That's when Time usually puts out its Person of the Year. And seasonals are always typically at play in December. How have you seen that play out so far in the market? We're going to take these remarks in the boardroom. Let's take a look.
Well, I've been coming to the New York Stock Exchange literally my entire career. And whenever I walk by Fearless Girl, it reminds me of me, very afraid, the first time that I stepped into this building. And I'm just so honored and so grateful to you, Lynn, for welcoming us for this year and for years to come to announce our Time Person of the Year. And while I'd love to take all the credit for last night, I will take none of it. It all goes to you and this team. Sam Jacobs, our editor-in-chief, who's been doing TV this morning. So many of us, including him and me, are on very little sleep. But he announced on the Today Show, and I think many other appearances this morning. So we're really excited. Yes. The architects of AI. I think this is a great choice. Public interest and intrigue in this decision has really been at an all-time high. We've had so many articles in the press, even competitive media companies. Let's talk about the prediction markets, or let's not, with AI really leading the conversation. And I asked AI itself why it should be Person of the Year, and it said, well, I kind of had a big year. That was almost right. That was almost right, because as Lynn mentioned, we are focusing on the architects, we are focusing on the leaders and the people and the humans that are imagining and building this future that we will all be living in. I just have to use data and stats, especially here at the New York Stock Exchange. Spending on AI has reached $427 billion. ChatGPT has 800 million weekly users. That's 10% of the population. NVIDIA has become the first $5 trillion company, smashing all of Wall Street's expectations. And Anthropic is reported to go public at a $300 billion valuation. And this is just the beginning. So again, thank you, so grateful to our newsroom. This story was reported across 3 continents, dozens of interviews with people that are shaping this revolution. And what I love about Time is we don't just focus on the markets, the investors, the CEOs, but the scientists, the artists, the politicians, and so many more. The conversation is so big and it's so broad. We had 2 covers. What I love about these 2 covers is it just shows what's happening here with humans and with machines. And of course, if you haven't read it yet, time.com, please go on, and it's free. But this is what we do. I love to always look back in our archives. We started reporting on AI literally in the 1960s. I just think that's amazing. And we've really doubled down on this coverage. We have our newsletter, In the Loop, and we have our AI 100, where we are naming and investing in the community of the most influential, important leaders that are making an impact in AI today. So this is a historic choice. This is a historic moment. This has arrived. I want to take a moment to welcome Chris Lehane. Hi, Chris. Chris is OpenAI's Chief Global Public Affairs Officer and he is a Time AI 100. So congratulations. We are announcing today a partnership between Time and OpenAI to accelerate global AI literacy. We want people to learn how to use the technology effectively and responsibly, and we are so grateful and so thankful. Chris, you have been an incredible driving force, making AI accessible to everyone. Your work through ChatGPT for teachers was an amazing announcement, and we are so glad that you are here with us today. So thank you to you and your team. As I always say, you never write it in my script, you never put it on the teleprompter, you never allow me to thank you, and I'm going to continue to do it every time. I will not ask you all to stand up, because last night was a late night, and a lot of you have traveled very far, but Time team, this was across the entire company. We start working on this like tomorrow for next year, and I just want to thank you so much, and thank you for getting up early to be here. It's so special to be in this building. It's so special to ring the opening bell. I know, Lynn, you aren't just the president of the New York Stock Exchange. You are one of the most important, influential women on Wall Street. So I love that, especially when we had Man of the Year, but we changed it to Person of the Year. You are our Woman of the Year. So thank you. And I'm really excited to ring the bell. So let's do it.
All right, don't go anywhere.
Yep.
So Jess, I have one of these to add.
All right, a live look there inside the boardroom. NYSE President Lynn Martin alongside Time CEO Jess Sibley. We'll have a lot more with Time and its CEO Jess Sibley on the other side of this short break. Stay with us on NYSE Live.
ICE, we aim to solve some of the biggest problems in markets. Often these issues come down to a lack of transparency because a market doesn't have the right technology, data, or systems. We address this by digitizing analog markets. Digitizing markets brings transparency. At the heart of this is our technology. It's the same technology which underpins our trading venues, that powers the New York Stock Exchange, that drives our fixed income pricing, and our mortgage platform. Deep trust in our markets has made us the world's largest exchange for energy trading. Our exchanges price the world's most important commodities, many of which support the shift to lower carbon fuels. In mortgages, we operate across the life of a loan. Through electronification, we're making the home buying process faster and simpler. And through our data, we're bringing new transparency to mortgage securities. We're bringing you powerful, fast technology, access to a depth of market data. We're building liquid markets across asset classes and geographies, and we're listening to our customers every day about what you need.
Welcome back to NYSE Live. Earlier this morning, Time announced that the architects of AI, which include some of the biggest chief executives across the technology sector, have been named its Person of the Year. In Time's cover story, it said tech titans, quote, placed multi-billion-dollar bets on one of the biggest physical infrastructure projects of all time, end quote. Well, joining me now with more on the space is Ray Wang. He's the CEO of Constellation Research. Ray, it's great to have you on the show. You are our AI expert, and as Time names AI Person of the Year, the architects of this, who are the architects that stand out to you in the space?
Well, of course, first off is Jensen. He had the chips that made it work. He's the one that actually enabled everybody to actually build on top. And he had a vision that started way early with GPUs. And that gave him a huge advantage. And then, of course, you have other chip makers along the way. But then on the other end of the spectrum are model builders. And if you look at OpenAI, their ability to actually hit that consumer moment. They're at about 800 million users, getting to 1 billion. That's actually a huge number, and we're going to see that take over in terms of adoption and use. But all along the way, there have been people building AI, and the challenge has always been trying to make sure that this is a consumer play, an enterprise play, a government play, and these folks really made it stand out. And so across the board, you have what they call computing providers, Microsoft, Satya's big investment in OpenAI made a role. If you look about Google, their ability to go from chip to the ability to get to agents and apps, Oracle playing a role in the background, of course, Amazon making that happen. And of course, if you think about the models, Meta, Anthropic, and of course, X with Elon Musk, those have all been a huge area in terms of building that development. And then, of course, how do you make the chips? And that came through TSMC and ASML, which drive that capability.
Expand. As we get ready for 2026, Ray, what are you going to be watching in this space?
Well, I'm really looking at what's going to happen to the secondary and tertiary forces around AI. And when we think about that coupled with foreign direct investment into the U.S., what we see are, of course, data centers, we see distribution, we see energy and power plants, precision manufacturing, and of course, a set of dual-use technologies. How that all plays out is really going to reshape the American economy, and that's what I want to know. And then the impacts in terms of the second and third order impacts to the world in terms of what it means for a job, what it means to human, where does purpose come into play? Every organization has an opportunity to become what we call an AI exponential, which is taking advantage of AI to get 10x, 100x, 1,000x gains. It might seem impossible today, but we're starting to see companies emerge that are building that future.
You know, it's interesting, every single story that we've done from a business perspective this year on our show, NYSE Live, AI has been a part of that conversation, how businesses are using it to innovate, what it means for the consumer. As you referenced earlier, we had the Fed decision yesterday in the afternoon, and the Fed actually raising its growth forecast for next year, Ray, and downgrading its inflation outlook. That would be a positive for the economy and persistent with what it needs to achieve in its dual mandate of maximum employment and stable prices. What is AI doing to the economy?
Well, we're getting a massive efficiency expect, and so GDP growth is expected to be 2.3% for 2026. What that's saying is, as the job market cools and productivity goes up, the question is, what is it going to mean in terms of the targets and the metrics? What is the number for revenue per employee people are going to be expecting on the street? What is the profitability per employee that companies are going to look at? We've got companies today that are doing 200 million in revenue with 20 people. Is that going to be the norm? And are there going to be more companies, less companies? I think that's the questions we're going to be asking into 2026.
AI has the capacity to make things more efficient. I think you could argue that that helps growth. Now, with inflation, that outlook coming down from the Fed, do you see that it has a deflationary or a disinflation affect the use of AI?
I see it as de-inflationary, and what's going to happen over time is that productivity curve, just like we saw the productivity curve of digitization, is going to go really, it's going to have a hockey stick effect. And that hockey stick effect is going to start with a few companies who started early. You're going to see companies that actually take advantage of that gain. So the companies that are actually taking all these repetitive processes that are in place and achieving what we call decision velocity, they're the ones that are going to win because they're using AI to make faster decisions. It gives them more steps, more moves, more opportunities. That's where we're going to see why companies are going to beat other companies, especially in terms of performance over time.
You mentioned all of the tech titans, which I think is important to point out, Ray. GE Vernova, that's in energy power generator maker, if you will. Its CEO, Scott Strazik, joined us live on our show just yesterday as that stock hit a 52-week high. The shares were up some 16% in yesterday's session. That company raising its multi-year outlook, doubling its dividend, upping its share repurchase authorization, and AI is at the crux of that story. You referenced it earlier, but the knock-on effects in the energy space and the amount of power that it's going to take to fuel these technology companies in their push to AI, how do you quantify that?
Well, it's actually pretty easy. The funny thing about AI, it's going to make physical assets even more valuable. Energy, water, real estate. We're already seeing that come into play. And so the knock-on effects are, there is no AI without power, chips, data, right? And these three things are going to be the foundation in terms of what we do next, whether it's going to be how companies are going to be run or it's how we're going to look at research. And so we've got to be looking at power companies that have the capability to deliver on small modular reactors or new types of power. So whether it's renewables or whether it's nuclear, they're going to play a role. We have to think about water sources. They're going to be important, not just in chip production, but also in what we do in pharmaceuticals, what they're going to impact, because there's going to be a war for water. All these things are coming back to the basic resources around assets, and now we're actually looking at asset-backed models as opposed to just pure digital and pure capital-based models.
Ray Wang, CEO of Constellation Research, thank you as always for joining in. So glad we could get your insight as Time today at the New York Stock Exchange talks its Person of the Year, the architects of AI.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you, Ray. All right, everyone, you're watching NYSE Live, and stay with us because after the break, we're going to take you live to that opening bell podium. There's a live look on the floor, the New York Exchange Times CEO in her red. Yes, Jessica Sibley, she's going to be up there on the bell podium, and we'll have more on the other side.
Real estate is a major asset class. Yet there is little visibility into loan dynamics. At ICE, we're bringing new data, technology, and fixed income expertise to capital markets, creating transparency into residential mortgages to better anticipate loan prepayment, defaults, and losses. Transparency, price discovery, innovation. Mortgage data happens here.
Across global markets, data underpins every decision that is taken. At ICE, we provide quality data and analytics across multiple asset classes, from fixed income, energy, commodities, and equities, to areas like climate risk and the entire life cycle of a mortgage. To help inform trading decisions, our pricing and reference data covers millions of instruments. In fixed income, our data can help reimagine your workflow. In energy, our oil and natural gas data is used by global traders, while our energy transition data helps navigate the shift to a low-carbon economy. In mortgages, our data covers the life of a loan, from origination to secondary markets. We can meet your data needs wherever you are. Whether it's pre-trade analytics, pricing, or post-trade reporting, our data can offer a foundation for sound decision-making, helping market participants to manage risk and spot opportunity.
And welcome back to NYSE Live. In just a moment, we're going to take you straight to the opening bell podium where Time CEO Jessica Sibley is set to do the honors, celebrating the architects of AI as Time's Person of the Year for 2025. There's a live look at CEO Jessica Sibley alongside NYSE President Lynn Martin, and let's listen in to the open.
It's truly an honor and privilege to actually stand here today. When NYSE was founded, our mission was clear: to provide comprehensive wealth management services. Over the past 15 years, we have stayed true to this mission. What truly drives us is our vision to become the leading wealth management brand for the global Chinese high net worth individuals. As we celebrate this milestone, we remain deeply confident about the future.
Welcome back to NYSE Live, everyone. We are officially off to the races in this trading session. We see stocks little change. The S&P 500 looking at a fractional loss at the moment, but of course we know that could change during today's trading session. Joining me now to talk all things markets, from the Fed decision yesterday to AI, is Ted Thatcher. He's president and financial advisor at Bright Lake Wealth Management. Ted, it's great to have you on the show this morning, and let's start with the market action. Where do we stand as equities open for trade?
Kristen, it's great to be with you. You know, Powell, of course, announced that rate decision yesterday. He said it was a close call. We know that there has been a lot of fighting amongst the Fed, but ultimately, I think the market is, of course, pleased to see that rate cut. Most of the market anticipated that cut, and I think if they would have changed tune, it could have meant a lot more volatility going into the holiday season here. And so we got to remember, the Fed has really been flying blind when it comes to all these different economic data points. We finally just got that big JOLTS report out on Tuesday. We still are just getting a trickle of some of this other unemployment information out. You know, we've seen the initial claims and continuing claims numbers come out today. But really, my eyes are actually set on next Friday when we get that new PCE print, you know, the GDP update, the consumer sentiment numbers, to really inform some of those actual economic vital signs as to where the Fed goes from here. A lot has been said even already about what are they going to do next year. But right now, I think the markets are just happy we got the cut that we expected.
The cut that we expected, indeed. And I think what we didn't expect that markets responded to favorably yesterday, Ted, was, of course, the improved outlook. The Fed upping its outlook for GDP growth next year, downgrading its inflation forecast as well. That's consistent with its dual mandate of maximum employment and, of course, stable prices. I want to talk about how artificial intelligence is changing this economy when it comes to jobs and when it comes to inflation, as Time earlier today did name the architects of AI as its person of the year.
Absolutely. You know, so much has been said, too, of whether or not we are in this AI bubble and if it's too far gone. I don't agree with that position. I think very much the mega cap companies that have benefited from this AI story have so much revenue and real stories to go with it. You know, top of my list really is Alphabet. It's so interesting to me that there was all this criticism for Google halfway through the year because of the OpenAI bursting onto the scene with ChatGPT and this belief that its search business was going to go away. Meanwhile, its Blue Link search business, even in Q2, was up over 10% year over year. We've seen that story change entirely throughout the second half of this year, and I think it will continue to in 2026. Google has an unbelievable stack going for them. They own the silicon, the TPUs on the bottom end. They have incredible technologists and an amazing performance of their new Gemini 3 model. And I think what's really, really exciting to me for 2026 is that Google has all the distribution they need to be able to take advantage of this market. Google has 230 million paid subscribers to their Google One services. Imagine the power that they now have for distribution to put that incredible model into all their different verticals. And that is to say nothing of the other, huge value story within Google of Waymo that has come out. They're now doing, I believe it's over 450,000 rides a week. They hit that benchmark. And so there's just so many things that are very much to be excited about with Alphabet.
I want to talk about Disney. That stock outperforming today. Shares of NYSE listed Disney up 2% pre-market. This is Ted amid news that Disney is making a $1 billion investment in OpenAI that will allow characters on Sora AI, the video generator. How does that change the game?
It's a great question. I mean, one of the biggest drivers in CapEx and business value, enterprise value has been brand. And Disney has cashed in on this again and again and again. I mean, we think about Marvel, we think about Star Wars, we think about all of the, IP that they have built over the years. And to pair that with the growth story that is AI, it makes perfect sense to me that they are at the top of everybody's list to talk about today. I mean, obviously you see, the trend these days, last several months has been what new deal is announced? What new deal is announced? And so, of course, these companies are getting credit for these announcements. In the past, it's been these new CapEx investments, those almost catapulting the market values. And now it's more and more of these partnerships. And where I see it going again in 2026 is how are the companies actually monetizing on those partnerships?
Ted Thatcher, President and Financial Advisor at Bright Lake Wealth Management. Ted, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Kristen.
All right, everyone, stay with us because up next, one startup just introduced an AI agent that it says can boost outpatient clinic efficacy by up to 20%. Its CEO will share more live from the trading floor on the other side of this break.
Etsy was founded on a simple but powerful idea that technology can actually help to forge human connections and make us feel more connected in commerce. And I think there's no place more appropriate than the New York Stock Exchange for Etsy to begin trading. This does mark the beginning of an exciting next chapter for Etsy. We are so excited to now be listed on the New York Stock Exchange. It's a marriage made in heaven. This day is for all of you to celebrate the future as we continue on our mission to keep commerce human.
It is my honor to welcome Phoenix to the public markets.
This is the beginning of our next phase of the journey, and we look forward to supporting our students and taking them to newer heights.
We're pioneering the area of higher education, and so we look forward to this opening far more doors for us as we proceed on this next path of our chapter. I am absolutely thrilled to be part of the NYSE community.
We're just happy to be here on this momentous day with the New York Stock Exchange.
We'll continue innovating, we'll continue pushing the boundaries of the asset class, and we are on a path to transform the entire investment market. So let's go ring that bell now. We have a team of 125 people. It's the culture of firsts that drives this company, and you are behind it. For 12 years now, we have innovated in every year of our existence. GDLC is one more step in that direction. Not only shaping the asset class, but inventing the asset class. This is just the beginning.
Welcome back to NYSE Live. Earlier this week, Contact.io launched an AI agent that allows health systems to optimize room assignments for outpatient care and says it could boost outpatient clinic efficacy by up to 20%. NYSE content creator Ashley Masternardi is on the trading floor with more. Ashley, good morning.
Good morning, Kristen. Contact.io is an AI company that streamlines hospital operations. And joining me now to share more is its CEO, Philip von Gilsa. Welcome to the New York Stock Exchange.
Good morning, Ashley. Thanks for being here.
So you understand that the Time Person of the Year is the architects of AI. So you technically are one of the Time People of the Year. First of all, tell us what Contact.io I/O is doing?
So first of all, when you told me this just before we started, I said it's the team, and I want to put that on camera as well. So Contact.io is essentially doing one thing from a mission perspective. We are here to lower the cost of delivering care while improving it at the same time. And we're focusing on the premises of the four walls of the hospital. In other words, what we do from a technology perspective is we're using real-time sensor data, combining it with EHR and existing systems information to then go into operations, what I call the boring stuff, the non-clinical domains, where we optimize resources, staffing, workflows, and that's what we do.
All right, what are some use cases? What is the technology doing inside of hospitals?
So I think our use case domain fall into three different buckets. We have fixed assets, which is essentially the space, or think of it as the walls of the inpatient rooms, where we're trying to see how can we improve utilization through patient flow. Then we have the domains of asset and supply chain optimization, where we go in and we try to track equipment and see how can we improve utilization patterns by optimizing distribution workflows. And last but not least, there's the domain of staffing and staff workflows. And here it's all about trying to understand what are the right ratios, how do we provide nurses the information where somebody is at any point in time to then improve the workflows they execute.
And you just launched Access Agent, an agentic tool. Can you share more about what Access Agent is doing?
It's essentially a co-pilot for outpatient access. And here again, we're not so much focusing on the scheduling piece of it, but more the actual premises of how the physical space, how the clinical exam rooms are actually being utilized. And what you see is that in the last 20 years, clinical exam room has always been optimized what I call on paper. We use scheduling data, and we try to optimize based on patterns that we've seen. The reality is, if you take real-time data, you take sensor information from how space is actually physically being utilized at any point in time, you have a new data set that allows you to improve things such as templates, dynamic roomming, and so that's one of the key domains we're going after right now, as it's one of the biggest pain points. And I'm sure you've been exposed to that as well when you try to book an appointment and you've been waiting for a very long time. And very often, some of these inefficiencies, how space is being utilized, can be uncovered and unlocked if we use a new set of data, which we then use to sort of apply AI to it.
How does this play into the mission and vision of Contact.io?
So we talked about the mission. Let's speak about the vision here for a second. At the end of the day, I'm building the platform in which care operations run on. And we believe that if we combine the view of the digital together with the physical world, then we are capable of orchestrating resources in real time. So instead of providing more dashboards or more software interfaces that are in fact interrupting workflows, we can nudge and take decisions on the spot and influence behavior, which at the end is all there to lower waste or the reduction of waste, and at the same time improving patient care and the outcomes that these hospitals provide. And so when I'm thinking forward, it's really partnering with these CIOs and CEOs. We're deployed in hundreds of hospitals and sort of taking that to the next level and going into every single aspect of resource orchestration in a hospital.
And in our last 30 seconds, you started this company with the mission to improve healthcare. What made you start this? What inspired you?
I mean, I think if you look at the overall cost of healthcare, it's been one trend. It's a line that has been going up. And I feel for a society that is sustainable, that is healthy, that trend can't continue. And a lot of the things that we've been trying to do in the last 20 years is essentially turning the same screws and buttons, and it doesn't work like that. There needs to be a fundamental shift of how we operate and run hospitals, clinics, etc. And I think the fundamental data behind that is we need a real-time operating view of these spaces. And that's been sort of a driving force for the last 10 years, and we're looking forward to the next 10.
Philip von Gilsa, CEO of Contact.io, thank you so much for joining us at the New York Stock Exchange.
Thank you so much, Ashley.
We're going to go to a quick break. On the other side, we are going to have an interview with Time CEO with Kristen Scholler. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Amira, this listing being here on Wall Street represents a strategic evolution. This is a special moment. Amira is a North American energy leader with 7,600 employees serving over 2.6 million customers through the regulated electric and natural gas utilities and the related businesses and assets that we own and operate. This milestone reflects your commitment to service, to safety, and to operational excellence.
Really appreciate the stock exchange and the partnership that we have. We're going to be back next year. We're going to make it bigger. We're going to do it in this room.
Off the muscle, I ain't got a tussle. All these rings like I'm Bill Russell.
True sports is not just entertainment, it's more than that. It can be a massive business. It can take athletes to entrepreneurs. You're influencing an entirely new marketplace.
Sports is really big business, and you guys are obviously a main driver of this. So really appreciate all of you.
We're here at National Safety Bus Week. As a mission every day, we think about the experience of our students and how do we take them to school safely. And if you think about safety, safety is about people. We provide at First Student 5.5 million rides per day.
We want to build technology that helps make the world safer, more efficient, more sustainable. And those kids are what we care most about. We want to keep them safe. We want to make our communities safer. And we're looking forward to years and years of partnership ahead. But today, let's celebrate.
Welcome back, everyone, to NYSE Live. Earlier today, Time named the architects of AI as its 2025 Person of the Year. Well, on that opening bell podium was Time's CEO Jessica Sibley opening the equity markets. And Jess joins me now here live on the trading floor with more. Jessica, congratulations on Time's 2025 Person of the Year.
Thank you so much. This is a historic moment, both for the New York Stock Exchange and for Time, to be recognizing the architects of AI. This technology is transformative. It is touching everyone's lives, how we work, how we think, how we live, not just for now, but in the future.
Absolutely. And I know we're on Wall Street, so I know you always come prepared with data. The data oftentimes can tell the story. What stood out to you in coming to this decision this year based on the numbers?
Well, let's speak about the numbers. They are in the billions and the trillions, just to name a few statistics that we used to report this story. If you look at NVIDIA, $5 trillion valuation of this company. Anthropic is reported to be going public at a $300 billion valuation. $427 billion is being invested in AI. And when you think about just individuals, there are 800 million people who are using ChatGPT weekly. That is 10% of the world's population.
Yeah, it is incredible. And I will tell you, we do a live show each weekday morning here around the opening bell. Every company is talking about AI. Talk to me about the methodology behind this decision. Obviously, the numbers are very powerful.
Well, I don't think that anyone would argue that AI and the humans, the architects, the people that are leading in AI today. And at Time, we don't just look at the CEOs and the entrepreneurs, or the investors, or the economists. We look at those that are building this technology across designers. We look at the ethics around AI and those that are advocates for that. We look at the researchers and the politicians. So this is global. This is touching every aspect of people's lives, the way that we work, the way that we live. And it's really exciting. I am so proud to be here today.
We're so honored to have you with us, Jess, here to celebrate Time's Person of the Year for 2025. And our viewers were watching to your remarks in the NYSE boardroom earlier, where you noted that Time has a new partnership with OpenAI. What more can you share about that?
Well, thank you for allowing us to announce this here at the New York Stock Exchange. We are in a partnership with OpenAI all around AI literacy. This is part of the purpose and the mission of Time and what we've been doing for over 100 years. So we need to make sure that AI is being used responsibly, effectively, that everyone has access to AI and that we're using it safely. And as I said, 800 million weekly users for ChatGPT. What Chris Lehane has done, he runs public affairs for OpenAI. What he's done with ChatGPT for teachers, with the academy, it's all around education. When you have the knowledge and the skill set, you have the power and you can make an impact. So we're so excited about this partnership.
How much work went into this? I know you have an incredible team at Time, and this is such a big moment every year when Time names its Person of the Year.
This year especially, there has been no shortage of press and articles that have been written about the intrigue for this year's Person of the Year. It's something that our newsroom really works on all year long. We'll probably start talking about the 2026 Person of the Year tomorrow. And it's all around, is it your year? Is it your year? Who has made the biggest impact on the year for good or ill?
Jessica Sibley, CEO of Time, here for the big moment, Time's 2025 Person of the Year, the architects of AI. Jessica, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us here. It's so wonderful to be here.
And we will look forward to 2026 Time Person of the Year. That's Jessica Sibley. You saw her on the opening bell podium and in the boardroom earlier, joining, of course, our morning show down here live on the trading floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Well, speaking of AI, Ticker Take is looking to deliver news and insights, such as the latest innovations in the AI space. Now, Ashley Mastronardi, our content creator, sat down with the co-founders, John Ehrlichman and Caroline Leslie, to talk more about the future of this technology. Let's take a look.
We ask a lot of our guests about the AI story, and I would say that it does feel like we are in a bubble, but the question is, what kind of bubble are we in? Are we in a bubble that is going to pop, or is it like when you're blowing a bubble with your gum and it might deflate a little bit after, a big, round, juicy moment? I think everybody's asking that question right now. The challenge is that what makes this different, in my opinion, from, let's say, the most comparable bubble that we hear people talk about, which is the internet boom. At that time, there were all these bricks being laid for the foundation of things like e-commerce. So we had to sort of predict what that internet footprint was going to look like. And then in a lot of ways, they overbuilt. Whereas today, you have most of the money coming from these big technology companies. They might scale back a little bit on that. But when they're able to invest and then roll out product right away and then generate returns on that investment and then tell their investors about it on conference calls, that's a different situation. And that's one of the things I think is exciting investors, is that not only is there this big new opportunity, but there is a way to tangibly see how money's being made so far. But obviously valuations are pretty big too, so that jury is out, I suppose.
And it seems like the funding is feeding into each other, such as NVIDIA's huge investment in OpenAI, and these companies are all like investing in each other. Do you have any take on what's going on there?
Totally see what you're talking about. The fact that there is a very familiar feel of where the money is going. At the same time, a lot of those companies are the ones that are required to do this build out. We did a video recently about the so-called hyperscalers, the Microsofts, the Alphabets, the Amazons of the world, who are oftentimes partnering with the NVIDIAs of the world to do this big build out. But I guess without their build out, would you be able to see all these AI tools that they're able to, put out into the world? What do you think, Caroline?
Yeah, like Nebius just did the deal with Microsoft. Yeah. But I like to look at it in buckets. So like how they all kind of feed into each other. So you have like the designers and the architects, the NVIDIA, AMD. Then you have the manufacturers, which, there's Samsung, but like I would argue that Taiwan Semi is really leading the charge with that one. And then you look at the memory, which the GPUs wouldn't operate without the memory. And I really love, we talked about this recently, the Korean company SK Hynix. And then you have like the GPUs that get so hot and the data centers get so hot and you have the cooling systems and you have Vertiv Holdings. And so there's so many, I get really excited about the tech and the AI stuff because there's all these buckets and these avenues. And then we had Kevin O'Leary on our show last week and he was talking about the whole the real estate and the land, because you're going to need the land for the data centers and the warehouses. And so, you know, there's Brookfield infrastructure. And he was talking about buying land in Alberta because you're going to need this land for all these. So there's just so many different avenues that feed into each other within the AI space that I think the bubble is not bursting anytime soon.
It's an ecosystem. It's definitely an ecosystem. And Caroline, are there any AI stocks that you are keeping an eye on?
One that I didn't mention is a Canadian stock out of Saskatchewan, Cameco, and it's the uranium play. Because of the electricity, we're going to need the uranium to power all of this. So that's one that comes to mind that is a favorite.
We did another video recently where we didn't just talk about those hyperscalers, which we referenced, or the chip companies, but what would be that next building block through AI? You know, here at the New York Stock Exchange, you have all of this data, which is so valuable to any of these AI tools that are out there. And so a lot of data companies are going to be worth watching in the next few years because, you know, the one thing that people often find fault with is, you know, can I trust in this information that I'm getting back from the AI? So if you're already a reliable data provider, your service is probably going to be in high demand over the next few years.
All right, thanks there again to the Ticker Take AI experts joining us to talk all things about this massive technology. It's going to do it for today's show. We are here on the floor of the NYSE celebrating Time's Person of the Year, the architects of AI. And a reminder to our viewers who watch us every day, you can catch us on all the streaming services you see on your screen. We'll be live back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. From all of us at the NYSE, have a great day.
We're here to celebrate where we've come from for the last 233 years. Today is a new chapter. Today is a new age. And I think you'll agree that the new chapter is getting off to a good start. The right idea, the right approach, and the right technology will get rewarded in any market.
We can change the outcomes of people's lives everywhere.
The leap of faith, the vote of confidence, that is why we're standing here today, getting ready to ring the bell on the New York Stock Exchange.
Innovation, space, defense, national security is great, but our mission is you.
And what we're building is really, really important for the future of humanity.
In an era of unprecedented technological advancement, companies like Voyager don't just adapt to change.
Rest assured, this is a milestone. It's an important one, but we're just getting started.
It's not the finish line. We have a lot of work to do, a new battle to continue to be waged.
So Voyager's future, best days lie ahead of us, not behind us.
The belief that every individual has the right to build a dream, to live peacefully, that is what Voyager's mission is. And with that, let's roll.